Today I'm going to show you how to build dashboards in Excel that are fully interactive and dynamic. So as you're selecting filters, you can see the charts in the dashboard are completely updating immediately and dynamically. This is going to set you apart. I'm going to show you how it's done in 30 minutes, and there's a link in the description below if you want to get the file so you can work along with me. So let's get started, and I'll show you how to build this amazing dashboard in next to no time. So to get started, we need to go to our raw data set, and this shows another feature in the dashboard where we've got an interactive icon up here where you can link directly straight to that raw data. And the raw data tab is down below. So I'll click that link and show you where it is. And basically what this is, it's a simple table, one table of information for a department store and their sales in April. It's got the country where the sales happened, it's got the product and categories, profit, revenue, and a whole bunch of other information, and we're going to use this as the basis of our dashboard. So let's get started. We'll shut this down and start building this from scratch. You can follow along with me. Okay, so here's the raw data. First thing we need to do is create a dashboard page. So we'll add a new page down below, and we'll just start formatting this quite quickly. So I made it a little bit smaller so we can put it all on the screen. We'll go and change the colors of the background, and you can change this to anything you like, or you can follow along with me. Okay, so we've got the colors there, and the first thing we want to do is put a title into this report. So let's merge and center a little bit of a section so we can make a big title. Change it to 28, and we'll make the font white. We'll change the font. You can choose anything you like. I'm going to go with this one, and start typing Department Store X. Okay, we'll put that to the left, and we might make it just slightly bigger, and then we'll add the second part of the heading. Again, I'm going to go back to the same font type, make this one orange, a few spaces to make it indented, and we'll call it the April Summary Dashboard. So we've now got our headings in there, and if you remember from our dashboard that we put together, we've got some revenues or total revenues and sales up the top here. So let's start building that one. Total revenue, total profit. Now we're just going to format those so they stand out a little bit better. Bold and italics. We'll make the profit orange all the way through this dashboard. And we want to put some values here. So how we're going to do that, we're going to create some pivot tables to do that. So let's just rename this sheet. Rename the sheet, and we'll call that dashboard. And now we're going to create our first pivot table so we can get some dynamic data in here that changes as our dashboard gets filtered. So we'll go to the raw data. I'm going to highlight the entire data section, which goes down all the way down there. Insert, go to pivot table, and press OK. We're going to call this total sales. It's good to name the tabs because it makes it easy down the track when you're adding filters to everything. Total sales. Okay, over here, what we're going to put in there is when we click into the pivot table, all the fields that we have from that original table appear here on the right hand side. If you can't find them, you click somewhere into the pivot table, go over to design, pivot table analyze, and add the field list. You can see mine's highlighted, and I can click that on and off. So I'm going to do that now, and I'm going to put in the revenue, and I'm going to put in the profit. And you can see when I go and add a filter to this pivot table, say I change it to category, and then I maybe pick one category like electronics, the numbers automatically and dynamically change. So we're going to use these ones. I'm going to change the format of these by going and clicking the little down arrow, go to value field settings, number format, and currency. Change this down to 0 decimal places and press OK. I'm going to do the same with profit. Number format, currency, 0 decimal places, and OK. So now we've got this information here, which is dynamic based on this filter. So let's add it to our dashboard. We'll put it over here next to revenue. I've selected the cell, equals, then I'm going to go back to my pivot table and select that cell. And you can see that this formula comes up as a get pivot data formula. Not a typical formula where you just add a cell or a cell range or a cell reference. If yours doesn't come up like this, I'll show you how to do it, but I'll press enter for the moment and I'll do it again here. Equals total profit, and that's that particular cell. So what that's saying is it's looking at the total sales tab down here, it's looking in the pivot table and it's getting the sum of profit, and it's based on the pivot table that starts in range A3, so this cell of A3. That's how the get pivot formula works. So we'll go back to the dashboard by pressing enter, and we'll format these and we'll make them dollars or accounting, take out the decimal places, make them white, and we'll make that total profit one orange so it has that same consistency across this whole dashboard. So now we've already got our first part of the dashboard here ready to go. And if you remember from the dashboard, we also had that little icon where it linked straight to that raw data tab. So let's go and do that. We're going to go and insert a icon, and a couple of options can come up. You can use one of these, or you can use anything else, any other picture you have. I'm going to type in business icons, and we'll put something like this check box for a checklist for the data. So now that will be added to my report. I'm going to right click that and format the graphic, so then we can actually change the color of the picture. So we'll go up here, the graphics fill, we'll change it to white, and now we'll add that to our dashboard. So that's now an image that we can set up as a link. So we can right click that image, click the link, and now go to place in this document, and you can see that raw data is one of those options. That's the raw data tab. So now if I press OK, and if I click this icon, it'll take us straight to that raw data tab. So now we've got our first interactive image on our dashboard. Now we want to create those charts from that dashboard, and we'll start with the one down the bottom left hand side, which was our region chart. So let's go and do this, and we're going to do this again by creating pivot tables. So we're going to highlight this range, the whole lot, exactly like the other ones were. They all need to be the same range for your filters to work. So we're going to go and insert, and instead of just pivot table, we're going to do over here on the right hand side, click the little down arrow next to pivot chart, and we're going to do a pivot table and chart. Press OK to add a new worksheet, and we're going to call this one regions. And all I'm going to do here is I'm going to add the region to the rows, and I'm going to add our revenue and our profit to the values. And now we've got our chart. All we have to do now is format this chart. So we're going to go and change these value field settings again to currency, just so it looks nice on our report. Currency and 0 decimal places. Okay, we'll do the same with profit. Value field settings, number format, currency, 0 decimal places. Now one thing we wanted to do is we wanted to make this a bar chart, so a horizontal one. So we'll right click that chart, change the chart type, and we'll change it to a bar chart. I like to have mine with the largest to smallest going from top to bottom, and to do that we have to go click into the pivot table, go to data, and sort by A to Z. Now I'm just going to tidy this up, so I'm going to right click these little squares that come up and appear when you use pivot charts, and I'm going to hide all the field buttons on the chart. I'm going to get rid of the x-axis, and I'm going to get rid of the grid lines. I'll quickly change the colors of the headings, make it blue so it's consistent across the board. And now I'm going to right click onto the actual bars themselves. I'm going to format this data series because I want them to be overlapped. So I'm going to grab this overlap, which comes under this little chart icon, pull all the way to the right, and now you can see that you've got the sum of revenue all the way in blue and the portion of that revenue, which is profit, highlighted in orange. And now I'm going to simply click those orange bars, right click, add data labels. I'm going to click the data labels and I'm going to align them by clicking that chart option and going to inside base. I'm going to make them white to make them stand out. I'm going to click the blue bars, right click, add the data labels, and I don't mind that position, so I'm going to leave them where they are. I'm going to make this a bit smaller. I'm going to click the data bars again. I'm going to make the gap a little bit smaller, just so it looks a little bit more visually pleasing on our dashboard. We can change and update our legend, and you can see I've just done that there. I'm going to click the whole chart again, format the colors. I'm going to get rid of the border and remove the border. I'm going to put a border around that legend. So I've clicked the legend. I'm going to select the border again, solid line, and I'll leave it as blue. So now we've got our first chart that we want to add to our dashboard. And we can format this a little bit later once we hit the dashboard as well. So let's do that. We'll grab that, copy that chart, and put it into the dashboard. So I'm going to right click and paste it. So we'll start and we'll put it down below where our original one was. And we can, again, like I said, we can format that later as we need to. Okay, so the next one we want to do is we want to add that mapping chart that we had before, which is really handy. And we're going to use a pivot table again, but we can't really use the mapping charts as a pivot chart. So I'm going to show you how we can do this. So we'll start that process again. We'll go to that raw data. We'll go to insert. This time we'll just insert a straight up pivot table. Press OK, adds a new tab down the bottom. We'll rename that tab and we'll call it maps. So we want the map to be by country. So we're going to grab the country from these pivot tables on the right hand side and put it into rows. We're going to grab the profit, well, because we're going to map the profit of these countries. Just to make it a little bit more obvious, I'm going to go and change that number format again to currency with 0 decimal places. Press OK. And here's how you create this map chart in pivot tables, so it makes it dynamic with your dashboard. Now I'm going to go up here to my pivot design. I'm going to take off the grand total, so off for rows and columns with these grand totals. Now over here I'm going to get my data by saying equals and select the entire data range. And now it's just come over here in another format. So it's created a spill formula. And you can see when I change this, and maybe I'll put a filter in here, and I'll put categories in the filter. If I change this category to say clothing, it updates the pivot table, but it keeps these zeros. That whole range has come across in my spill formula. So to change that, I'm going to go click in that top cell, and after the colon, I'm going to put another dot there. And you can see if I press enter now, what that does is it eliminates all the zeros at the end of a table or a spill range. So now I'm going to use this particular range as my range for the mapping chart. So I'm going to just select that cell of D4 because that's where the range starts. So it knows to take that whole range when you're including a map. So we'll go over to insert a map. And there we go, the map has been created and you can see the color range is there already. So we're going to tidy this up again, just like we did with the other chart. We're going to take off the chart title. We'll keep the legend there. We might select the legend actually and format it. So we'll just take the legend without overlapping the chart, just to make the map a little bit bigger. And then if we click into the map itself, you can see here under that chart icon, there's a series color where you can update the colors how you like. I'm going to choose a diverging 3 color range with the lowest value being, maybe I'll do the dark blue, my middle value being the light blue, and the high value being orange. So there's my chart. Now I can add it to my dashboard. So I'm going to right click, copy, go to my dashboard and paste. So now I've got my second chart into my dashboard, and I'll just make it a bit smaller And there we go. I'll click that map again because I want to get rid of those border lines because I want to make this a little bit more visually pleasing down the track. And you can actually bring whichever map you want above or in front of the other. So if you can see this one here, it gets hidden behind the map. So I want this one to be in front, so I want it to be in front of the mapping one. So all I do is right click this particular chart and bring it to the front. So now this particular chart is the dominant one and it overlaps that mapping one. And we can get rid of Antarctica down the bottom. Alright, so we've got a few more charts to build, so let's start building those ones. And we'll start with the one down the bottom, which is a combination chart of the category and the products. So, as per usual, we'll go to the raw data, we'll go to Insert, right to this side, to the pivot chart and table, and press OK. Okay, so let's go and add those fields that we need to add here. So we're going to add category into the axis, and we're going to put the revenue this time into the chart. But we want to nest these categories and nest the products within the categories. And now you can see that the chart has done that. So again, we just need to tidy up this chart. And first thing I'm going to do is go and change that value field settings in the revenue to make it a currency. And now I'm going to tidy up this chart. I'm going to right click the boxes and hide all field buttons. I'm going to change the colors of the axis to the dark blue to make it consistent across my dashboard. And then I'm going to get rid of the chart title. And I'm going to get rid of, and I'm going to keep the legend. I'll get rid of the legend. Now within the chart, I'm going to make the background a little bit of a light blue just to make it a little bit more visually pleasing. I'll click these bars, right click, format data series, and I'll just make that gap a little bit thicker. I like a thick bar in the charts that I've got there. I'm going to make this a bit smaller, maybe not that small. I can change the font of the axis, and now I've got my chart that I'm going to add into my dashboard. So we've got 3 of the 5 charts done, and once I finish these charts, I'll show you how to build those filters that dynamically work through all of these charts. So let's paste these here. Bring it down the bottom. And again, as I've got this chart selected, I'm going to go to the border and select no line. Make it a little bit bigger, slightly smaller. And now our third chart has been created. So let's just go and change the name of this tab because, like I said, it's going to make it easier when we create those filters. So we'll call this one products. Okay, so let's go and build our 4th chart, which is the chart by countries. So we'll go to that raw data, insert, pivot chart and table, press OK, and this time we want it by country. So we're going to bring country into the axis, and we're going to bring in the revenue into the values. I'm going to simply format this chart now. I'm going to do this quickly. Hide the field buttons, delete the axis, delete the legend, delete the chart title, make these slightly bigger, right click, gap width, a little bit bigger, make it a smaller chart, small as I can to make sure that all the countries can fit in there. Bring the chart all the way to the sides and bring it down. Make it a small chart and make sure the names all fit in there. I'm going to go to the border and get rid of the line, and now I'm going to get rid of the grid lines as well. I'm going to sort this by highest to lowest. I'm going to hit the column B where the sum of revenue is, go up to the ribbon into data and sort in descending order. So now I can copy this chart, Control C, go over to my dashboard and paste the chart here. So we'll bring it over into the chart range. Again, we'll make it as small as we possibly can so we can fit the other chart in there. And there we go. So I'll go back and rename that tab by right clicking and rename, and we'll call this one countries. And now we're on to our final chart before we get to the filters. And the final chart is our pie chart. And this one I'm going to do slightly differently just because it can get a little bit messy with the pie chart, especially with lots of results on there. So we'll go back to that raw data. It's all highlighted. We'll insert pivot table, press OK. We didn't do the pivot table and chart this time, we just straight up did a pivot table, and we're going to bring in the category. So we're in category, and we'll bring in the revenue again. We will sort the revenue by going to data and sort Z to A, so now it's highest to lowest, and we'll get rid of that grand total by going up to design, going to grand totals, off columns and rows, and now we'll create that spill formula again. And this is where we're going to create our pie chart from. And I'm only going to want to show a couple of those categories in my dashboard, maybe the top 3. So let's create a formula where we double up these first 3 or top selling categories. So I'll put the revenue up here and we'll create our pie chart. So let's click into that cell E4, which is the top left corner of the spill formula. Go up into the ribbon, go to insert, and we're going to go and insert a pie. We're going to do a 2D pie. And now we're just going to format this pie chart. So now the pie chart's selected. In chart design, I'm going to select one without these white borders. I'm going to change the color to blues, so a color pattern of blue because it matches our others. I'm going to get rid of the heading, and I'm going to change this legend, and I'm going to put it to the right. So I've selected the legend, and I'm going to locate it to the right. And now we have our pie chart. I'll just slightly update this, make it a little bit smaller so we can fit it onto our dashboard. So let's do that. Takes a little bit of mucking around, but once you get it, it should be fine. And we'll copy that, Control C, and put it into our dashboard. Control V. So now we've got all of our charts into our dashboard, and I'm just going to make that final change where again I take off that border so it'll look really good once I put some visual aspects to this dashboard just to make that a little bit more professional. So we'll make that a little bit bigger. So if you remember from our original dashboard, it looks a little bit more professional than this. So let's just tidy this dashboard up slightly so we can make it a little bit more professional, and then we can add those filters, those dynamic filters to this dashboard. So let's start, and I'm going to do by inserting a shape. I'm going to use the one here, which is the rectangle shape with curved borders. I'm going to create this curved border shape here. It's not quite how I want it, so this little yellow dot, you can actually create it to make the corners a little bit sharper. And now I've got my background for my borders. Now this is selected, the shape format selected. I'm going to do the shape format of fill of white, and the outline I'm going to make it a light grey. And now it's covering my chart, so all I have to do is right click that, send it to the back, and now it looks like those charts are all on this one piece of nice looking background. So I'm just going to change this slightly even more. I'm going to click this background. I'm going to go to the little pentagon icon here, and I'm going to add a shadow. I'm going to use a preset shadow which just has it going to the left slightly, and I'm going to make the transparency maybe 35. So there again, it's now popping out. It's making that dashboard a little bit more professional. So I'm going to create this and replicate it to all the other charts as well. So Control C, Control V. We'll make a small one for the one down the bottom. Just line it up so it works nicely. Slightly smaller. And right click, send to the back. And we're going to do this 2 more times for those other charts above. Control C, Control V. I'll make sure I don't replicate the chart. And I'll replicate the background. So there we go here. Make sure I've got this one here. And now it's just a matter of formatting a little bit to make things look nice and tidy. Center the back. Control C, Control V. We'll do that again for this pie chart. And again, we'll right click and center the back. Now we just want to make sure that the charts fit in nicely into those new backgrounds that we've created. Okay, so there we go. We are now at the final stages of this dashboard, and let's move into creating the filters for this dashboard and show you how to make them dynamic so they actually fit across all the charts on the one dashboard. So I'm going to go back and just rechange that name of the pie chart tab, just so these filters can work nicely. Just want to make sure everything fits nicely, and there we go. So we're going to go back into the pie chart and we're going to add some slices. So we'll click into the pivot table, and up in the design, next to that you've got pivot table analyze. Now we just want to add some slices, and this is what they call filters, slices. So we wanted to do one for region and we wanted to one for category. We'll press OK. And you can see now that if I change or select something in the region, say APAC, the chart automatically and dynamically updates. So we're going to add these slices to the main dashboard. So we're going to copy these, Control C, copy, go to the main dashboard, and we'll paste them over here. I'm going to tidy them up, make a bit smaller. And now we've got our slices in our dashboard. But what we want to do is we want to test them. So we're going to select APAC, and you can see the pie chart's updating. Hold down Control to select more multiples, but none of the other charts are changing. So how do we change this and update all the charts? We simply right click the filter or the slicer, go to Report Connections, and now it gives you all the options where the slicer can update. So you can see all those pivot tables we created, and I named them so it makes it easy, that if we want to change each of those different charts or sales values like we have at the top there, we need to make sure that they're all ticked, and we'll press OK. We'll do the same for the one below, right click, Report Connections, make sure they're all clicked, and press OK. So now when we select the chat tabs, everything updates along with the filter. So there we go. Everything's working. Everything's now dynamic in this dashboard. I'm just going to go ahead now and do the last minute formatting so it matches that report that I showed you at the beginning. It just makes it that little bit more professional so you can show it off to all the people at work or school. So let's do that. I'm going to grab this background again, Control C, Control V. I'm going to make that into the filters. So let's make it a bit smaller, and we'll make a little background for our filter. Right click. Let's change the color of that. So I'm going to click the shape format, do the background by shape fill, press gray, send to the back, and now we've got a little background or border for our filters. And we just want to put some headings into this report as well. So again, I'm going to create that by copying and pasting these backgrounds that I created. They become very handy in this report, and I've used them multiple times. So I'll create a heading for our filters up here, because you can actually type into these. So I'm going to go back to home. I'm going to change the format of this to white. Sorry, I'll make that a dark blue and start typing in there. So this is filters. I might even change the format of the font. I like this one here, as you've been seeing throughout this video, so we'll change that to filters. Center, make it a little bit bigger, maybe 18, and create our filters heading, And we'll do that for the rest of the report as well. Control C, Control V. We'll do that twice because we want to let everyone know that this is revenue over here because we took the headings out from everything. And for this one, we're going to change the color to orange because profit has always been orange throughout this report. And we can change that over and put it over above the maps. So there we go there. And the last thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to View up in the ribbon. I'm going to get rid of the grid lines, take away any of the formatting. And I've just noticed that there is one mistake with the pie chart. As you can see here, as I'm clicking the categories and I'm holding down Control to enter more, that this legend isn't quite working. So I'll quickly update that. Cross that down, we'll select the pie chart, we'll right click it, select the data, and we'll make sure that it's referencing only those cells we want it to reference and press OK. So now as you're selecting the categories, the legend goes along with it. So we'll cross that down, and the final thing you need to do is just hide all those other tabs. No one else needs to see them, so we'll hide them. You can put protections on if you like, and we'll leave just the raw data and the dashboard. So there you go. That's a really great and easy to use spreadsheet that's turned into a dashboard. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Click that like, select that subscribe button. See you next time.